depend on a medication. God, you said I can depend on you. After 3 days, I put it down and I never picked it up again. And I dealt with several more years of dealing with what I went through. How can I say, and sometimes it's embarrassing, people don't want to tell their stories, and I've heard evangelists, even in my own church, people are not ready for my story yet. We don't ask for the intimate details, but if I'm going to talk to you about how you're hurting, I got to listen because your story may be the same as mine, but we have the same source to go to, and that's Christ Jesus. I know what you went through when you were homeless. I had to sleep on it. No matter what your story is, you don't have to tell them how you went through it completely, because some things need to be kept between you and the Lord. I was beaten. Couldn't tell my family because even though we were church kids, and we know sometimes preachers' kids can be some of the worst ones, I had some brothers that would have put them in the ground. And I could not live with knowing a brother of mine is sitting in jail for doing something or killing my husband. I was blessed because I married into a family of ministers that kept me held up in prayer and helped as much as they could. I used to leave, but I kept coming back, and it wasn't under my own volition. Circumstances, nobody to help, and everybody gave information. Oh, you shouldn't take it. Oh, I wouldn't deal with this. And one night I packed my kids up and left when a family friend offered help. We got there and she wouldn't open the door for me. And we stayed there all night, kept knocking on the door. She was home, the TV was on. And the movie Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome was on, and I'll never ever forget it. My daughter was 12 at the time, and she just turned 40 this summer. I went back and I said, I'll never ask a man to do anything for me again. God, you got to deliver me. And I thought my deliverance was going to come from God changing him, so we can have the family that I always wanted and dreamed of. But little did I know the Lord was going to take him home two weeks after he turned 49. And it didn't stop there. We had some of everything. In my younger years, I lived well. We lived out in Upper Montgomery County. Big house. My husband had several businesses. But when he left, because Maryland is not a community property state, everything went with him. And I didn't have money to fight for anything. I thought that was the worst thing that could happen to me. I used to tell him, all the businesses you had, my name's not on anything. But I found out that was the best thing he could have done for me, because a year later, FBI came looking for him for a connection to somebody else that looked like he had dealings with, that I could have been responsible for. I can talk to a sister about hurting, abused, how I held on. The way I held on may not be for everybody else. You may have other resources that you can turn to. But we can't help anybody if we don't look within ourselves. Armor up before you go out there, because it is something to be reckoned with. These kids are not the same as what they were when we were growing up. There's absolutely, and I hate to say it about our own children, it's almost like there's nothing in them. I was just telling Evangelist Starks, several school teachers, elementary school teachers that I know have left from teaching because they say, I could deal with some bad kids. You can discipline bad kids. She said, but these kids are so disrespectful, it's unbelievable. Look at the foundation of what you're dealing with. I read a story the other night, and one of the preachers had wrote a story, and I read it. He said he called someone out to deal with some cracks in the wall of his house. When the person finished with it, he said the wall looked as good as new. But then he looked about a month later, the cracks were back and then some more. So he figured he would call somebody else that would know what they were doing. And he said when he called upon this person, he looked at the wall and looked at the wall and said, I can't help you. And he asked, well, why can't you help me? He said, your problem is not the cracks in the wall. And he said, don't you see all of these cracks? He said, the problem is your foundation.